I have to admit, the gloomy and unsettling have always drawn me in. I therefore knew I had to visit the Villisca axe murder house when I first learned about it in the small Iowan town of Villisca. It's a well-known tourist destination for both ghost hunters and fans of horror, and boy, were they correct? I managed to save up the substantial $428 per night needed to stay at this notorious house where a 1912 murder went unsolved with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The ruthless blows of an unidentified assailant completely crushed the skulls of 6 innocent children and 2 adults. I was frightened just thinking about it, but I persisted anyway. I was curious as to whether the stories were real. The home had been painstakingly restored to reflect it in 1912, preserving the atmosphere of that memorable evening. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread as I stood in front of its worn-out facade. Intermingled with the autumn breeze was the odor of tragedy and history. I took a deep breath before pushing the front door open. The house itself seemed reluctant to let me in, as evidenced by the protesting groans of the hinges. The moment I crossed the threshold, the atmosphere changed. The atmosphere became oppressive, thick with a presence that seemed to seep into every crevice. The house itself served as a historical time capsule inside. Every little thing, from the old furniture to the discolored wallpaper, took me back to that crucial evening more than a century ago. I couldn't help but think about the terror that once echoed through these spaces, the hushed cries of helpless victims permanently inscribed on the walls. In order to record any potential paranormal activity, I set up my equipment as dusk fell. The room was filled with cameras, recorders for audio, and detectors for electromagnetic fields. My heart was pounding with excitement as I anticipated what the night would hold. Unbeknownst to me, however, this visit would turn out to be more than I had anticipated. I was about to go through genuine horror in the same location where horror had previously struck in November of 2014. On this risky journey, I was joined by my friend Robert, a thrill-seeker from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. We had a shared urge to explore the unknown and were therefore kindred spirits. Our footsteps reverberated through the empty rooms as we moved deeper into the house together. Under our weight, the wooden floorboards squeaked, each sound amplified by the eerie silence. Our senses were deceived as shadows danced along the walls, as though a hidden force were sucking the warmth out of the space. The air became icier. My skin was covered in goosebumps, and I had the unshakable sensation that I was being watched. Unexpected excitement descended upon us as the clock struck midnight. An extraterrestrial energy erupted in the atmosphere. We then heard it, a faint sound of footsteps, as if someone were stumbling across the floor above us. Robert and I looked at each other, eyes wide with excitement and fear. Our footsteps resounded in the deserted hallway as we followed the sound. A flickering candle provided dimmer lighting as it stretched out the corridor in front of us. Its faint glow created unsettling shadows that appeared to move on their own. The air became oppressive, as if our chests were being pressed against an invisible weight. The memories of the home's tragic past seemed to be alive and well. We moved deeper into the house's interior while holding our breath. Every step forward felt like entering the uncharted, a world where the line between the living and the dead was hazy. I felt a chill run down my spine as a result of the temperature drop. My curiosity kept me from turning around, despite a primal urge to do so in order to escape the unknown's clutches. The man with the axe appeared just as the legends had predicted. He appeared in front of us, his form hazy and transparent. His ghostly hand gleamed with the same axe that had claimed innocent lives in 1912. My blood began to race, and Robert and I froze motionless in terror. A chilling laugh was emitted by the man holding the axe. It resounded throughout the entire house. It was a laugh devoid of joy, tinged with the agony of wandering spirits. Fear was pervasive, threatening to suffocate us, and we could almost taste it. He moved toward us, and his intense gaze pierced our very souls as he did so. He was emitting an evil energy that we could feel, an old rage that wouldn't go away. The line between the living and the dead grew more hazy with each passing second, as if the past were seeping into the present. Then, with a speed that defied his ethereal form, the man lunged at us while swinging the axe. The blade whizzed past me as the wind whipped past me. I stumbled backward as instinct took over, narrowly avoiding a horrific fate. As we turned to flee for our lives, fear overcame us. There was a cacophony of horror as our screams blended with the spectral cries that resounded throughout the halls. We scrambled out of the house, our hearts thumping in our chests, gasping for air. As we came to terms with how serious what had happened was, sweat beaded our foreheads. But our ordeal did not end there. We took a breath and saw something strange. My courageous friend Robert clutched his chest, his face looking lifeless. He had injured himself, and blood was on his trembling hands. I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911 in a panic, my voice quivering as I pleaded for help for my hurt friend. With every passing second, the distant sirens wailed louder. However, at that particular time, the eerie coincidence was all I could focus on. I was terrified by the chilling parallel that Robert had been stabbed around the same time the 1912 axe murders started. Would I ever learn the truth and what dark forces were at work in that house? I watched in horror as paramedics rushed to Robert's side as the ambulance wailed its arrival, their faces etched with worry. They moved swiftly, efficiently, and urgently to stabilize him and place him on a stretcher. As I entered the ambulance's back, determined to remain by his side, anxiety overcame me. Unsettling shadows danced along the town walls of Villisca as the ambulance's flashing lights illuminated the nighttime surroundings. Each minute felt agonizingly long as they traveled to the nearby hospital, with anxiety and unanswered questions permeating every moment. Was it the evil influence of the house, or something far more sinister that had driven Robert to inflict such a gruesome wound upon himself? The medical staff quickly took Robert to the emergency room after they arrived at the hospital. I was mentally tormented by what had happened that night as I paced the sterile hallways. The owner of the Villisca Axe murder house, Martha Lynn, had always expressed worry about the shadier aspects of the house's notoriety. I now couldn't help but understand why she was so concerned. I waited for updates on Robert's condition for what felt like an eternity. A worn-looking doctor finally came over to me. He explained that Robert had undergone urgent surgery to undo the harm done by the self-inflicted wound. Robert had severe physical injuries, but doctors predicted he would live. The sense of relief washed over me, but I couldn't get rid of the nagging suspicion that there was more to the tale, something beyond the sphere of simple coincidence. I pondered what had happened as I sat by Robert's bedside. his injury occurring at the same time as the Villisca Axe Murder House's 1912 axe murders was too eerie to be explained by coincidence. Weeks passed by as Robert slowly recovered from his wounds, but the psychological scars from that evening continued to plague him. His eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and resignation, and he declined to talk about what he had gone through. He was rendered speechless, as though the supernatural had taken a heavy toll on his shoulders. I was unable to let it go to sleep. I investigated the Villisca Axe Murder House's past in an effort to learn the truth. Numerous late-night hours were spent reading through old newspaper articles, police reports, and first-person accounts. Every page revealed the horrific details of that fateful night in 1912, and with each revelation, the pieces began to fit together. Due to the mysterious events that visitors had reported, the Villisca Axe Murder House had drawn a lot of paranormal enthusiasts. Those who dared to enter its doors experienced strange occurrences such as apparitions, disembodied voices, and unexplained noises. The visitors' curiosity and vulnerability appeared to be a food source for the dark energy trapped inside those walls. But what had happened to Robert? It was now obvious to me that the evil power within the house had seized upon his frailty and used it to cause harm. The injuries he had sustained mirrored the brutality of the 1912 axe murders. I got in touch with Martha Lynn in the hopes that she would be able to clarify the events that had occurred during our visit. She confessed with a heavy heart that she had seen many strange things over the years. She had grown accustomed to strange shadows darting through rooms, inaudible whispers, and the pervasive sense of being watched.